Hey Alex, it's everyone, and today I'm excited to talk about one of the biggest balance updates we've gotten in Marvel Snap's history. Like legit, it has been a long time since we've got an absolutely massive OTA with sweeping balance changes to some legitimate archetypes. We've also had some meta contenders, one or two of them, which honestly kind of breaks my heart to see them get nerfed, but maybe statistically it had to happen. We also got a buff to a card that literally no one played except me in a legit high-performing shell, so that shell just got better with a card that just got buffed again, which is going to be really exciting to talk about. And we also have a brand new card that just got buffed too. There's a lot going on here. We're going to break it all down, starting with Thanos. Now, Thanos has always been a bit of a meta tyrant. It legit has been the kind of card where it's like, even if you thought Thanos was out, like you're like, oh, they finally did it. They nerfed Thanos. No one's going to play him ever again. He comes back, and he comes back stronger, and he comes back great. Like, there's always opportunities to play Thanos. I mean, even this week with Dormammu, people are playing Thanos with Dormammu. And so Thanos has like this constant threat to the meta. And managing Thanos has been a challenge for the balance team. So what they're doing here is they're taking a bit of a different approach. Now keep in mind, I'm not going to say that we've reworked Thanos, but Thanos has been changed quite significantly over the last couple of years. One of the most significant changes, of course, was that Thanos was drawn into your hand at the start of the game. That was incredibly impactful because you essentially guaranteed you have a turn 5 or 6 play depending on whether or not you played that time stone. Moreover, you don't have to run the risk of drawing Thanos. Like anybody that's testing Dormammu this week knows that while you're trying to summon Dormammu, drawing him kind of feels bad. And so Thanos, starting in your hand, is a huge uptick in power. They've now removed that. Thanos no longer starts in your hand, and now the draw mechanic of Thanos has been added to one of the stones. It's a significant nerf. The power remains the same. However, the stones are going to be upgraded to mitigate this general downside. Then we have the Space Stone, which does get an additional power, goes from a 1-2 to a 1-3. Okay, so a little bit of an increase of power here. They did change it so that it no longer says that you can move Thanos, so ongoing, nothing can stop you from playing or moving Thanos. The moving Thanos part has been removed, but it does say ongoing, nothing can stop you from playing Thanos. But more importantly, it says draw Thanos instead of drawing a card. This is a significant change. You're taking the draw Thanos, which was basically the condition at the start of the game, and you're adding it to the Space Stone, generally increasing the value of both the Space Stone and the Mind Stone, because this Mind Stone obviously gives you an opportunity to draw the Space Stone, which then allows you to play that into drawing Thanos, okay? So a major significant change. It's also worth noting that with the Space Stone, it makes sense you'd put it on the Space Stone, because if you put it on something like the Time Stone, you're giving him a negative cost, and drawing him is probably pretty rough. And so it makes sense that the Space Stone, which honestly I actually do really like the ability of, having the draw Thanos ability, right? Because of all the other ones, I feel like the Space Stone had the most design space to incorporate bringing Thanos into your hand, as opposed to some of the others which had some greater effects. I mean, I guess to some degree you could have maybe done it with Soul Stone. Soul Stone was, I guess, the other option. Space Stone is the one they decided to go with. It's also worth knowing that the Space Stone does get a +1 power increase as well, which I might have already mentioned. Reality Stone does get a +1 power increase. Nothing changes text-wise. This is purely just an additional kind of like power infusion into the archetype, considering that not drawing Thanos guaranteed is now a significant downside. Then moreover, you are getting the reversion of the Time Stone change. So essentially what you're getting here is you're going to draw a card and give Thanos -1 power, or cost I should say. Still the same power and stat line, but overall that draw card is now back. And this is a kind of reversal over like literally the last OTA essentially. So for Thanos, it's a significant change, and I think it kind of had to happen. I would be interested in seeing how Thanos' final form ends up looking, because I still think that they're not there yet. I still think that we still need to make some tweaks here. Thanos is a super fun archetype, and I think it's important that Marvel Snap has the Mad Titan as a legitimate archetype worth playing in Marvel Snap. It opens up a lot of deck building and synergistic opportunities when trying to craft around some new cards, but we don't want him to be an absolute meta dominator for eternity, right? So I think it's a smart choice to kind of make some changes and see how you can make Thanos feel fair but powerful. Next up is Galacta, and I have to tell you, I was a little surprised to see this nerf, because Galacta always was an excellent card, and at a 52.4% win rate and a 20% meta share according to Untapped, infinite statistics only over the last 30 days. Obviously, it's a very meta-relevant card. 20% is a very high play rate, but like we've seen time and time again that anytime you have a card that provides 3+ power, it's going to be good, maybe too good. Like, it's always, +3 power has always been too much in Marvel Snap. And Galacta released as a 4/6 that gave +3. Now it's a 4/5 that gives +3. And now with this OTA, it's a 4/6 that gives +2 power. Make no mistake, this is a significant nerf. The +1 power does not offset the -1 on the power it provides. When a card reveals with the power added to it, in the case of like Sebastian Shaw, Brood, and etc., it's a very significant power infusion. And not to mention Kitty Prides and stuff like that. Like, Galacta was a very good, solid card to add in a wide variety of shells. It's still good, it's just not great anymore. And I think that reverting to the 4/6 stat line is probably not enough to compensate for the +2 power. And I think this could be, I think some players will be frustrated with this. You have a season pass card that was obviously very strong, and even by their developer note, like, it has always been highly impactful, always had very good stats, always been a bit of an outlier. So it does kind of break my heart to see it go to +2 power. I almost would have rather taken it to a 4/4 and kept the +3, but I'm not a game designer. I'm just thinking from like an actual like identity perspective. +3 to +2 here, while it sounds like it's only one, it's a significant change considering the types of cards that it synergizes with. And so I feel like this is a very significant nerf to Galacta. Is it going to be okay? Probably, but maybe not. This might feel, to me, almost along the lines of the Nocturne nerf, where like the one power is like, that's not going to do anything here. But I think specifically with Galacta and the reasons why you play Galacta, this is kind of significant. So, especially with a bit of the power creep we've seen at 4 cost here. I'm surprised with this one here. It wouldn't surprise me if this kind of takes Galacta out of the zeitgeist for a while, only to eventually come back maybe. But I think this is definitely a very significant nerf to Galacta, and I don't think it should be understated. Red Guardian. 16% of the meta, 53% win rate. This card has been everywhere. And part of it has been that, like, they've been releasing more and more cards that have just been, like, begging to get Red Guardian, right? And so as a result, Red Guardian has been a core component to so many different decks. It's also this, like, low-risk catch-all that you can often use. Like, if a new card comes out and you're like, man, I don't want to deal with Diamondback this week, or I don't want to deal with Enter card here this week, you can just play Red Guardian, and you just throw Red Guardian into your deck, and any card or anything that someone tries to do that's fun, you just like Red Guardian it. It's like, okay, cool. You don't get to do your thing anymore. I just keep doing my thing, I guess. The stats were a little too strong. Essentially now you've brought it down considerably. I shouldn't say considerably. It's only 1 power. It's effectively a 3/4, but the removal of the text is extremely important. One thing I will say is that Red Guardian, I think, was very fascinating from a standpoint that, like, you could almost protect it with low-powered bodies. However, in practice, it often was that this thing was just smoking you over half the time, and hitting very effective targets, right? A great tech piece, and I still think that, honestly, Red Guardian's absolutely fine. You don't play Red Guardian for the 3/4 effect or 3/5 effect. You play Red Guardian because you're deleting the text off of an important piece that your opponent is probably depending on for part of their game plan. And so I think that ultimately this is a very welcome nerf, and that Red Guardian is going to age just fine. Unlike Galacta, I think Galacta's nerf is much more significant, and this one here feels like probably about right. Does it take Red Guardian out of the meta? I don't think it does. I think Red Guardian will drop in meta share for sure, but still represents a very good option from a tech perspective. And so I think Red Guardian is going to be a-okay. I like this change a lot. Now, Misery as a 4/8, I actually play a lot of Misery. Seeing it go to a 4/9 I think is fair, because Misery is one of those cards where, like, you have to commit quite a bit to getting the effect off, because you're essentially destroying the cards that are there. Like, when you're playing Mill and you do Yondu, Cable into Gladiator, and then you Misery that's a lot of power that you're just like giving up in the lane to reproc those effects. That obviously reproccing the effects is awesome, and you're destroying your opponent's deck, but at the same time, it's like you've lost a lot of power. There's a massive vacuum of power there. And so with Misery, it felt like it was at odds with the power, because you're taking so much off the board and you're not really adding much back. Of course, the on reveal abilities being replicated is kind of the main draw here, but you still sometimes felt like, well, now what do I do? I basically have an empty board. It's turn 5, and Misery as a 4/8 probably doesn't carry that lane. It's not insignificant, but it's just not quite enough. As a 4/9, It's not crazy. Honestly, I think this could even went to 410, considering how difficult the lines are with Misery. But 4.9 I think is fair because, again, those on-reveal replications are insane. Not to mention, you got Fire Hair as well. Fire Hair and Misery lets you double dip on those on-reveals at times. And so the Misery effect can really reach far. So I do agree with this buff a lot. I like it. I'm actually surprised that Misery only runs a 5% meta share and a 49% win rate. I feel like, first of all, she is a high skill ceiling card to play. And I can see this meta share rising because I feel like Misery is often just close enough to being meta relevant where it's like, if this deck was only 3% better, Misery would be legit. You know what I mean? Like, we've had so many decks on the cusp of meta relevance where Misery is in them and they just haven't quite breaking through yet. We've had some clogs, we've had some decks get there, Mill, Clog, and etc. But just not quite enough where Misery is like a go-to card. I think this card's kind of underrated. I think it's a little underappreciated. I like it a lot, especially as we get cards that like synergize with you've destroyed a card and what you do with that and etc. Like Elixir, which is obviously Cope. But regardless, I think Misery's in a cool spot here. And then we have Absorbing Man. This is fascinating too because with Absorbing Man, don't forget the last time Absorbing Man was buffed, he took over the meta, going from a 4-4 to a 4-5, which I believe was his original, like not his original, his prior stat line. He was a 4-5. They're like, bro, we got to take this back. We got Absorbing Man, Broods everywhere, Patriots going crazy. Like, it's kind of wild that they said, okay, we've made this mistake before. Let's do it again. But again, we've had so much power creep at the 4 cost. Is that meta is long gone. Is Absorbing Man as a 4-5 just fine? I'm actually kind of happy with this risk because let's say like Absorbing Man goes off again and he's absolutely crazy. At least we're bringing back a deck or a few decks that we've not seen in a long time. And so I'm all for Absorbing Man getting buffed to a 4-5. Historically, 4-5 has been too much for Absorbing Man. But we also live in an era where with Nightmare, we're playing Crossbones, Atuma, and like Cull Obsidian, unironically. So it's like, man, four costed cards have seen a power infusion and Absorbing Man needs something to catch up. Captain Marvel needs something to catch up, right? And another card, Captain Marvel, if you give her +1, she's not in this OTA, but if you gave Captain Marvel a 4-6 stat line, like she was broken at 4-6. Absorbing Man at 4-5 was basically broken. And it's funny, one power change completely changes everything, right? So Absorbing Man back to his pre-nerf power. Let's see if it's enough. I gotta be honest with you guys, seeing Wolfsbane getting buffed really puts a smile on my face. First of all, this is a card that sees almost no play competitively. I think because some of the archetypes and shells that she's in just kind of suck. However, this card here honestly could put up some serious power, and I have gameplay highlights on YouTube, not recently, but like a while ago when I did more like individual deck videos, right? When I had a little more time, where I wasn't driving my kids to hockey and soccer practices like every single day, like not even a joke, every single day I got somewhere to be. But what happened was that like I was able to get Wolfsbane to like 20-30 power like kind of frequently with like Odin Wong combinations and stuff like that, which I thought was kind of fun. The verticality of those combos was pretty cool, and sometimes I even put like white tigers there, so you'd have Wolfsbane popping vertically while the white tigers are going horizontally. It was actually really interesting what it could do. But like those decks just aren't that great, especially with the amount of tech options that are available now, whether it's like Guardian, Cosmo, which is actually kind of rising in popularity as well. So Wolfsbane just like never saw play. It's just in slot for a 3, never competed. So giving it additional power, I'm not going to pretend like, oh, it's broken now, because it's not. Like, again, when I was playing Wolfsbane, she was like getting to insane power levels. But does this make the new player experience a little better? Maybe. Does it allow low collection players to at least have an option for a card? Possibly. And it honestly is a very fun card. It's unfortunate that Wolfsbane isn't a little better, because it is really fun to play. And I think one of the challenges with Wolfsbane specifically is that closing a lane in Marvel Snap is a very big commitment, and you generally want to play Wolfsbane as the 4th card, obviously. And so as a result, it's hard to hold until the end of the game because you don't really want to. But at the same time, it's like early on, you don't want to just close a location and give your opponent a math problem to just simply solve to win a location, right? Which is obviously going to be very detrimental. But seeing Wolfsbane get some power, I think, is welcome. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are excited about that. Now, this is the one I'm most excited about. Running almost a 50% win rate over the last 30 days and no meta share, it's basically 1% meta share, is Rhino. Now, I was one of the only people to incorporate Rhino into a deck. It was a 3-6, and I actually thought it was pretty good, even at 3-6. Now it's a 2-5. This is a crazy stat line, especially when you consider you're adding a rock to your side of your location, which is Merlin fodder. Merlin's a great card, and so you can use that to like polymorph and stuff like that, because you want the Rhino to stay on the field to play, but maybe you can polymorph that rock, turn it into something cool for that 1 energy, right? So I think Rhino is pretty interesting. Long story short, unless you were playing Surfer, this is a massive buff, an absolute massive buff. And that Merlin deck that I had created on the onset of Merlin's release was playing Rhino simply because it provided you with a target for Merlin's polymorph ability with the rock, while also putting up extreme power. That deck got better, and I think Rhino got better. This is a cool change. And you know what? I'm glad they're taking these risks. I'm still of the opinion that I would like to see Rhino destroy a location and add a rock. I think I would rather take a power off, make him a 2/4, and have him destroy a location. But it seems as though the Snap team is very committed to locations being this variance kind of infusion into each and individual game, which honestly I get. Locations are a huge factor and a huge part of Marvel Snap. Sometimes they just piss me right off and I want to just punch them right out, and that's what Rhino does. Can you give Rhino a 2/3 stat line, add a rock? No, that's probably too much. I think it's 2/4 stat line, destroy location, add a rock. But then it's like 4 different cards in one. I don't know. Are we actually excited about Rhino now? Is that what I'm saying? Is Rhino too good if he destroys the location? Maybe. What a weird conversation we're having right now. We're talking about whether or not Rhino's getting too good. But as a 2/5 that adds a rock, especially with Merlin, man, that's legit. You can also consider something lines of Rhino into Viper. That's not crazy. Add a rock to their side so they can Merlin it, I guess. But realistically, I think Rhino's kind of cool. I like Rhino. I'm all for this change. Still would like it if he destroyed a location, though. I think that would be kind of cool. But overall, I'm happy where Rhino is. Now, Tao Mandala and the Ancient One obviously underperformed at a 41% win rate and a 1.6% meta share. And it was literally exactly what I said and what Cozy said. It's too slow. It's too expensive. The 3-cost Tao Mandala is just too much to pay for the effect. It's too expensive. And the only time it felt playable was when I had Quinjet on the board and it was down to a 2. Now with Quinjet on the board, it's down to a 1. Now we're cooking. This was a very necessary change. The body on the Ancient One is a 3/5, absolutely fine. But Tao Mandala was too expensive as a 3. It had to come down as a 2. We diagnosed that right off the bat. But like, yeah, you did have some potential. It did do some really cool things. I did have some games where like Tao Mandala did slap, but it was like you're jumping through too many hoops, right? Just too many hoops are being jumped through to make that effect happen. This does help you slide it into a curve much more effectively, especially since you're working essentially with turn 4, 5, and 6, where you often want to have very high impact plays. This is a significant change. I don't want to undermine like why a skill going down by 1 cost is not significant. Like it is. This is a big change, especially when these can be impacted by something like a Quinjet. So Tao Mandala going down, I think it's a big buff. Is it enough though? Honestly, I'm not sure. Like, I think the Ancient One had other problems, like the decks it was being played in and the archetypes that it supported weren't quite good enough yet. The Victoria Hand stuff was good, but not great, especially in a meta where, you kind of need things to be excellent if you really want to climb and get to the top echelons of the meta. Sorry, I was going to say MMR. It's also worth noting that I think that a Tao Mandala Victoria Hand deck will get you infinite. Like, I think you absolutely can get to infinite with a deck like that. However, I think that like at the higher MMRs, like you just need a little bit more. And so this is a good step in the right direction. I don't think that the power level of the Ancient One is the problem. 3/5 is excellent. I think it's Tao Mandala, which was just a little too slow and need a little bit of extra love here because it takes a lot of setup from a macro perspective. And now finally we have that setup down. We get to take advantage of it with a less expensive cost. As we've discussed a few times already today, seeing some older series cards kind of get a little bit of a buff is awesome. And I think this one's actually a really cool one. I like what Second Dinner did here because it makes a lot of sense. I think this is a straight up design improvement on Ironheart. Essentially, the old Ironheart gave 3 of your cards +2 power, but the problem is it's a 3-cost card. And it's like, well, what if you have to play Ironheart on curve and you only have 2 cards on the field to play? Turn 1, turn 2, 1 energy, 2 energy. Let's just play something like a Squirrel Girl or Rhino, I guess. You don't really have targets on turn 3 to play it on curve. So now what you're doing is you're taking that same stat line, you're increasing the power each individual card gets, but only giving 2 other cards +3 power. It honestly makes sense. You can now play Ironheart on curve. It does reduce its overall reach. Like sometimes you're like, hey, I just want Ironheart to hit maybe the Sebastian Shaw or whatever. Like maybe you want to take some extra shots with Ironheart and that's where the fun is. But this now is a much easier card to play on curve. Early collection level players will find this much easier to play. And so I'm for this. I think this is a very nice, clean change. I don't think Ironheart is suddenly like incredible. it could potentially be still very usable in archetypes like negative and stuff like that. Like, it has roles to play. They're just not really meta relevant right now. Like Ironheart itself. Now, Ironheart is coming. It's like a new movie or show or something coming out with Ironheart, right? I was watching the new Captain America. And I know there was like an ad for it on Disney Plus. It was like Ironheart, which actually looks cool. But maybe that's why they decided to wait till now to give her a I don't know. But anyways, I'm for this. I think it's a really good design change. Professor X, another very niche but interesting change. Essentially what they did, they kept the power the exact same, but the ongoing, moving is the only way you can add or remove a card from here is what it said prior. Now it says, moving is the only way you can add or remove a character from here. And what that allows you to do is play skills into that location. So if you're playing like an Agamotto, you can Winds of Watum something out of there. So let's say you play Professor X and you whiff on it, you can Winds of Watum something out to cleanly win that location. I actually think that's a really cool synergy. Like Winds of Watum and Professor X now really works well together. I also think you can polymorph into it. You can change locations. You can do a lot of stuff with Merlin into it, which I think is very fascinating. So, is this a really meta-shaking change? Not necessarily. Is it a cool change? Yes. I think what you're doing is if you're going to lean into the skills as a type of card you like really want to incorporate into Marvel Snap gameplay, then having something like a Professor X allow you to like operate with it, I think is pretty neat. Does this kind of break the idea of like, well, nothing could be done here? A little bit. I think it's kind of bending the rules of like what Professor X was supposed to be in the first place, but I'm okay with this change because Professor X is largely a forgotten card. And then Lockjaw. This is a massive change to Lockjaw. And I've been talking about Lockjaw for a while and making suggestions how they can change it. 4/5 was awful. We have a 2/2 Lockjaw now that has activate after you play your next card, swap it with a card in your deck. That's kind of cool. I like the idea that it's an activate and an expensive one as well, so you can kind of take a shot with it. Cards like Electro benefit from this because you play down the Lockjaw, you activate, you play the Electro, you do a swap, get a big card, which is obviously in ramp decks. I really like this. Cool change for Lockjaw. I'm all for it. However, I've always thought that Lockjaw was kind of cool. I'll just throw out my design again. If you guys have been listening for a long time, you guys will hear this. I thought Lockjaw was cool. It's like a 3-cost or whatever, that every time he rotated something, right, that you could essentially... it would lose 1 power. So in the Eternals, in the Inhumans show, which I absolutely do not recommend you watch, it is garbage. It is awful. It's not even bad. It's like it should not have been aired. Like they should have watched it and been like, yeah, how much do we pay for this? Let's just cancel this. We can't. This is embarrassing. It was awful. But in that show, which I still can't believe I watched, Lockjaw would get tired. He would fatigue, which was kind of like the main part of like why he couldn't just teleport people everywhere. With the activate effect, I guess it's kind of like lore accurate to some degree. He activates, he gets tired, and that's it for the game. But what I thought would be cool is that every time he rotated, he would lose 1 power. So as you rotated cards through him, Lockjaw would get weaker and weaker and weaker, until eventually he's like a 3-2 or whatever. I thought that was kind of fascinating. But this is also a cool change. It's also worth noting that it doesn't say after you play your next card here. It does indicate, and I haven't played it yet, but I would imagine you activate and you can play that card in any location and it'll swap. Potentially interesting. All right. The way it reads, I would expect that to be the case. But anyways, a really interesting change to Lockjaw. Is Lockjaw better? This is a way better version of Lockjaw, to the point where like I'm actually most excited about playing Lockjaw in Electro ramp and seeing what I can get, because you got the Electro, extra energy, and then you also you have so many big targets to pull out anyways. I think this is a huge change. I think it's a good change. It does make it a little, obviously, weak is bad. Activate is bad and weak later in the game. But on 2, man, I think this Lockjaw is pretty legit, especially you have the Lions calling for it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Wow, it kind of went long a little bit today, but this was a huge OTA, and there was a lot being changed. Thank you for watching, guys. I got another video for you on the screen if you're interested in watching more, and we'll see you on that next one.